Hello friends, in this video we're going to be talking about where are the best places to invest in real estate. If you had to pick the best market to invest in real estate right now, what would you say? Does it even matter? Does location matter? Well, by the end of this video, I'm going to answer those questions and break down for you the best places to invest in real estate right now, and I'll even give you the areas that I'm looking at right now, and they might not be what you think. As we dive into this episode, I want to help you understand why it's important to understand where to invest. I'm going to help you understand what to consider when it comes to certain areas. Secondly, I want to help you understand what KPIs, key performance indicators, to look at when it comes to investing in certain areas. And ultimately, how to find the best areas and understand which are the best areas right now to invest into. If you're ready, let's go. So let's talk first about the current market conditions when it comes to real estate. This is something that I dive into every single week on my own, but it's really important to understand the current situation around the real estate investing market. You know, I know there's a lot of fear surrounding real estate right now, or at least maybe more fear than there was maybe say 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Maybe not similar to what it was in 2007, 2008 when we had the financial collapse, but there are some people saying that the real estate bubble is going to burst. And I'm not saying it is, but let's compare to what happened when the real estate bubble did burst the last time in 2007, 2008, and compare that to the current economic situation right now. First off, I think you need to always look at supply and demand. So back in 2007, 2008, there was a ton of inventory on the market. And with a ton of inventory on the market comes prices coming down, right? The only way to differentiate maybe between one property and another is to lower the price. So you saw all these properties that were for sale. There wasn't a ton of interest in buying. There was a lot of pessimism when it came to the real estate market. So with all the properties out there, prices came down drastically in the real estate market. They've been trending up for many, many years prior to that. And all of a sudden with all this inventory, not a lot of demand, but a large supply, prices plummeted, and we experienced the bubble that burst in real estate back then. However, back then, one thing that I found interesting is people getting loans on properties back then prior to the real estate bubble bursting was people that should never have gotten loans in the first place. I remember there was loans back then called ninja loans. No income, no job, no assets, right? So people could get loans based on stated income, just on the money they said they were making. So you had people that were buying properties that never should have bought them in the first place. I don't know if you've done a loan recently or in today's market, but it's brutal. It is like a colonoscopy, right? Trying to get a loan done, it's extremely hard, even if you make good income and you have good credit. So I don't see those two markets comparable, right? From where you could get a loan to anybody to right now, it's extremely hard to get a loan. Right now, I think that the market condition is fairly stable. I don't think we're going to experience the real estate bubble bursting again, but who knows? There's a lot of factors that can play into that we'll talk about. So here's some other stats about the current market condition I think are important when you're making decisions about where to invest. First off, the average home in America right now has almost $300,000 in equity in that home. And a lot of those homes have no mortgages, right? So you've got all these homes that have tons of equity, and you've got a lot of homes that don't even have a mortgage on them. And I just read this about a week and a half ago, but Fannie Mae believes that interest rates by the end of the year might go down to 6%. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, interest rates were around 2, 3%, 4%. There's some people who have interest rates that are below 2.5% on their current home that they live in right now. Those are extremely low interest rates. I remember when I first bought my home, a condo, it was probably about 24 years ago. Buying that property, I think my interest rate was 10.5%. And I remember refinancing it at 6% and thinking I was in such an amazing place having a 6% interest rate, which is currently the market rate right now. Between 6 and 7% is what current interest rates look like. However, if interest rates do drop below 6% at the end of the year, that could attract a lot more buyers into the market. So knowing the market conditions, that's why strategy is king when it comes to investing in real estate right now and where to invest. So with the current market conditions where people have a lot of equity, that brings out a strategy that I love to talk about, and I've talked about in other episodes. Feel free to go watch those, but about seller financing. Seller financing is an absolute crucial strategy that you could engage in right now to be able to find deals. And I want to talk about that in just a few minutes. So before we dive into that, let's talk about the KPIs, the key performance indicators that you need to understand. For one, we don't want to invest in an area that's shrinking, right? So if a city or a state has a lot of people leaving that state, is there opportunities to make money and invest in that? Absolutely. But here's a handful of states that people are fleeing right now, just based off of research that I've done. But the states that people are fleeing right now are the following: California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Maryland. There might be some other states that should fall under that as well. And know this, I know people in those states that are making good money as real estate investors. So it doesn't mean you can't still invest there or make money there. But for me and my strategy, I rarely want to invest in a place that is seeing a lot of people leaving the state or the city or the area. So let's talk about growth opportunities. Where are these people fleeing to? Well, here's 5 areas that we know people are going to right now: Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Idaho. And even in the last probably 6 months, we've seen on that list Tennessee and the Carolinas, right? So those are some areas right now that you could look at and say, okay, we have people moving to those areas that are fleeing these states, whether they want maybe a different environment or they just like that area or they're tired of the state that they're in and they want to go to these different places. As I mentioned, it's important to understand at a micro level what is happening in the cities that you are going to invest into. Knowing certain things about regulations, knowing certain things about the real estate market is important. That's why a lot of times when people say, where should I invest in real estate? A lot of times it might be in your backyard, might be the best because you know more about that area maybe than anywhere else. However, it doesn't mean you're limited to that area, which I think a lot of people get scared about. They might say, listen, my area is not huge. It's not a great big city. There's not a ton of opportunity. I want to be able to invest in other areas. So you need to study and find those different areas. But I want to take some of the guesswork out of that for you. And I'll share with you exactly where I'm looking to invest in just a minute. So just recapping, when it comes to that insider information, here's some things I think that are important, right? If you understand regulations or you understand a certain demand in an area, that could be really important. As I mentioned in other videos that I've done, my first segue into real estate investing was in my own backyard. I knew something about the area, and a lot of people did as well, but I knew it a little bit more intimately because I'd grown up there. So I know certain areas that I knew that were going to be developed or that might grow just based on what I'd seen. And it was all around a college town where a university was going from a 2-year institution to a 4-year institution. So being able to invest around that, I knew that there'd be deals that would take place. Matter of fact, I knew people that bought old homes around the university that ended up selling those homes many years later for lots and lots of money. And now where those old homes used to be are huge apartment complexes. And so having a background in the area is really important. A good friend of mine that I've met through a mastermind that I'm a part of, he is from Minnesota. And there's an area in northern Minnesota that a lot of people travel to, right? Lutsen, Minnesota, up by Lake Superior. There's a ski resort there. But he started buying a long time ago short-term rentals because he saw the demand for people that were leaving like the big city areas as a place to go to, maybe to own a second home or to vacation. And he bought these at fairly low prices when you're considering it's out in the middle of almost nowhere, but it did have a ski resort close and waterfront that was fairly close. And all of a sudden he bought these properties for maybe $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. They're now worth 2 or 3 times that today. And that's maybe in a 7 to 10 year period of time that he's doubled and tripled his money on some of those investment properties. So understanding, having that inside information at a micro level really is important. Now I mentioned I'd get to this. So let's talk about the current market condition right now is you have lots of people, tons of equity, low interest rates. Seller financing is a great strategy to be involved in. When it comes to seller financing, there's a couple strategies that are really important. There's the sub 2 market, right? Which means that you can go in and you can get the property subject to the current loan, right? So if somebody wants to sell their property, right? Or they need to sell their property, it's a distressed seller situation, a distressed property situation, and you can go, rather than you purchasing the property and get a new loan with a new interest rate that's much higher, and this person has a 3% interest rate, you can buy the property subject to its current financing, which means you can take over that property at the 3% interest. Now you're going to give them some money to get into the property, but rather than going and having an interest rate that's much higher and a payment that's much higher, you're going to get in at the same interest rate that the current seller has, and you can go in and take over that property. And people might say, well, why would somebody do that? Well, if they're in a tough situation and they need to leave or they need to sell or they need to move, they would do it in a heartbeat. It is happening all around America right now. Another one is Airbnb arbitrage, right? So if you can find a property that you can secure with a long-term lease, right? That means 12 months, 24 months that you can secure the property. You put down a deposit and the first month rent, right? Or the first and last month rent, but you can go ahead and rent it out as a short-term rental at a nightly rate. Then you're probably making twice as much money as you're paying out in rent, right? So if you have a property that costs $2,000 a month to rent and you can go and rent that out at a nightly rate for $200 a night, and even if you had maybe 17, 18, 20 nights rented at $200 a night, that's $4,000. You're paying $2,000. You have to make sure that the place that you're renting from allows for short-term rentals. And you might say, well, why would the landlord allow me to do that? Well, I think he would in a heartbeat, because you're going to clean that property after every stay. You're going to have good furniture in there. You're going to make it look nice, and you're going to pay your rent on time every single month. So that's another strategy that could work in the current market right now. So let's talk about the areas that I like right now that I'm looking at. You know, this last summer I took a road trip with my family. We started in Oklahoma, Texas, went through Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, through Florida, up through the Carolinas and Georgia. I will tell you that I am currently looking right now. I love the Carolinas. I love that area. I love Florida. That's another area I'm looking at. And I love Idaho. So those are the current areas I'm looking at right now that I think present really good opportunities for real estate investing. Now, how do you find those properties if you don't live in those areas? One way that I've done it is I've joined social media groups on Facebook that are specific for certain areas that I like or certain strategies of real estate. Like I'm part of real estate groups that are sub 2 real estate. I'm part of real estate groups that are Airbnb arbitrage groups. I'm part of groups that are a certain city in Florida groups, right? So I'm able to start looking, or I'm looking in distressed properties, distressed sellers, wholesale properties. There's a lot of different ways that you can find these properties in the areas that you want to invest on social media. It's a great way to find properties that maybe aren't on the market. And it's also a great way to sell properties because there's an active group constantly looking to purchase properties on those different areas. So these are the things that I've done in my real estate career. This is where I'm currently looking, but I'd love to hear, where are you looking? Where are you finding some of the best deals in the real estate that you're doing? So go ahead and comment below, and I'd love to engage in a conversation with you. As always, I've got a free gift for you. It's aaronsfreetraining.com. It's a short-term rental calculator. You put the information in and it spits out to you whether it's a good deal or not. Once again, thanks for stopping by. Have an awesome day.